Good day, folks. So the Fusion's been out for about 3 weeks now, and I've been able to use it quite a bit. And I think I'm at a point now where I can make an opinion on it and do a slight review. Now, I just want to point out, you got to keep in mind that reviews are basically opinions, and my experience with the Fusion could be quite different than somebody else's. So you have to take my review and anybody's review with a grain of salt. Now, my review is from the perspective of an average Joe. I do not have a lot of experience with 360 cameras. I do own the Insta360 which I actually quite like. So just to start off, my personal opinion is that GoPro rushed this out the door. I don't think it was ready for release. If anything, it's still beta to me, the hardware and the software. If I had to peg it, I think they just wanted to get it out for the holiday season. I think it still needs a lot of work, both the firmware of the Fusion and the software for the desktop and the GoPro app. So let's talk about the hardware first. The design of it's really nice. It comes in the style of like what the GoPro Hero 5 and GoPro Hero 6 is. Now, one problem that I do have with it is that the lenses are not replaceable. Anything that I've read or tried to find out is that if the lenses get damaged, they get shattered, or you get a scratch on them. Basically, unless you have the GoPro Care, the camera's garbage. Now, that may change. Maybe GoPro will try and repair them down the road, but anything that I've read so far is that, GoPro will not replace the lenses if they're damaged. It would have been really nice if they could somehow have included a lens that could screw on and off, kind of like a protective lens. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if that's even possible. That would be really nice because after all, this is a GoPro and people are going to be doing some crazy things with them. And, they're going to get knocked around a bit. So having replaceable lenses would be a big plus in future versions. Now let's talk about the battery. If you live in the US, you have no problems. If you're like me, I live in Canada. International customers cannot order batteries singly on their website. Right now, I have no way to get extra batteries. If you try and add a battery or two batteries to your cart, you just get a message due to international shipping laws, blah, blah, blah. So the way I understand it, that when you order the camera, you can order one or two extra batteries and they can be shipped with the camera, but afterwards you cannot order single batteries. It cannot ship single batteries over the border. I wish GoPro would have made that a little clearer when ordering the camera that, hey, if you want batteries, you got to order them now because after the fact, you can't order them. And that wouldn't even be an issue if these were available in retail stores like Best Buy or on Amazon, but they're not available yet, and I've read they won't be till sometime in 2018. And I'm wondering if that's because GoPro knew the camera wasn't 100% ready to go, and that could just be a whole mess for them, a lot of returns and different things. So yeah, if you're an international customer, I'm assuming it's the same for all countries. If you didn't order batteries with the Fusion, right now you're out of luck. There's no way to get any extra batteries until they appear on Amazon or in Best Buy or something like that. And that kind of brings me to my next point, is that there's no way to charge the batteries other than through the Fusion. It would have been nice if GoPro had launched a dual charger like they have for their other cameras on launch day. Because right now, if you have several batteries, the only way you can charge them is by plugging them in one by one into the Fusion and charging them that way, which doesn't really help if you're out in the field, shooting, and, you want to recharge your dead batteries. You have to stop filming with this in order to charge them. Now, when it also comes to hardware, you do get this with it, and this little tool is amazing. I would definitely, anybody who doesn't get the 360 and just wants a nice little extension grip tripod, this thing is actually really good. It's a little pricey at $59. And again, it's only available on the GoPro website. And I've actually been using it more with my Hero 6 than I have been with my Fusion. So now let's talk about some of the software. We'll talk about the desktop Fusion app and we'll talk about the GoPro app. So now let's talk about the mobile app first. Now, thankfully, I'm on an iPhone because if you are on Android, you're out of luck right now. GoPro has not released a version of the GoPro app that is compatible with the Fusion. And to me, that is really, really bad practice. They should not have even thought about releasing the Fusion until all the software was ready to go. In all fairness, GoPro did make it very clear that the special effects, overcapture, angel view, all those special effects won't be available till 2018. But my thoughts are, why release a camera when the software is not ready to go? First impressions are everything, and people who are going to be getting the Fusion for the first time, if you could have wowed them right out of the gate, have the software ready to go, doing crazy, amazing things, that's going to resonate with people and make them love the camera. But right now, the ISO app is very limited to what you can do. You can kind of get a preview of your shot, change some settings, and preview some of the videos, but that's basically it. So I guess we'll just have to wait till sometime in January or February for GoPro to release the update that will bring all those exciting features to the Fusion and make it a little more powerful and a little bit more user-friendly. Now let's talk about the firmware. It definitely needs some work. One of the main problems that I'm having is powering the camera off. Quite often when I hit the mode button, hold it down to turn it off, the camera beeps like it's going to turn off, but then it just hangs, and the only way for me to shut it off is to pull the battery. And that's happened several times for me, so it's not like just an isolated one-off kind of incident. And just from what I've been reading, a lot of people are having different problems with the camera freezing and that. And, you know, that's all firmware. All cameras get those little glitches, and definitely that needs to be worked out. But again, it's like it's more of a beta firmware release, you know, like there's just so many little problems that I really don't think it was 100% ready to go. Let's talk about the desktop Fusion app. It is not a bad little program, and GoPro did state that it was going to be ready for when the Fusion came out, and it was, but it's very limited to what you can do. I was under the impression that because the iOS app was not going to be available with all the overcapture, that all that amazing stuff you could do on the desktop app, but that's not the case. It does have limited overcapture, but it doesn't have any way to set keyframes so you can move around the 360 image. You have to set what position you want it at, and that's what you export. Now, they do have the VR plugins for Adobe Premiere, but if you're like myself, I don't use Adobe Premiere. I've just never been able to sit down to learn it. It's a very complicated program, and I know there's many others who don't use it as well. You know, a lot of people don't want the monthly fee for it, and they just don't have the time nor the want to invest in learning such a complicated program. It's an excellent program, but you know, for an average Joe, it may be not the best choice. If you don't use Premiere, then there's really no way to use the overcapture features right now. The way it sits right now, the most useful aspect of it is just for stitching, and I don't know if that's going to change. I don't know if GoPro's going to add any extra editing features to it, where you can have a bit of a timeline and do some movement within the videos. I don't know if that's coming. I haven't really found out either way. Now, the problem with the Fusion Studio is that it's very buggy. It is crash prone, and there's no way to save what you're doing. So if you've got 20 files that you've set up in a render queue and you're going to render them overnight, because they do take a while to render, and it crashes, you got to get up in the morning and you got to redo it all. There's no way to save your workflow, stuff you've done, the formats you've set some of the videos in, and editing you've done to them. So that's a real bummer because it does crash quite a bit. The other problem is that sometimes Fusion Studio is not recognizing the camera. There are many people who just cannot get Fusion Studio to recognize the camera. When you plug this into a computer, for me, I'm on Windows, it recognizes it as two separate cameras. So in your My Computer, it'll come up as GoPro Fusion front and GoPro Fusion back. And it doesn't always pick both up. I've had it several times where it'll pick up the front camera but not the back. The initial time when I first really tried to get it going, it took me about 4 or 5 attempts of unplugging, plugging it in. I had to delete the driver a few times, and then it finally recognized it. The other problem I'm having, and other people are having too, is that sometimes one half of the video gets corrupted. Again, there's 2 halves to a video on 2 different memory cards, and sometimes when you're transferring them or the Fusion Studio is reading them from the camera, it'll say, you know, one is corrupt and can't be loaded. So that whole video is garbage. You know, there's nothing you can really do about that. Not that I found anyway. I've found no workaround for that. I've actually lost quite a bit of content from that error message. So now lastly, let's talk about the image quality. It's not bad. Personally, and this is my opinion only, I have not been blown away by the quality. My Insta360 which was a $300 360-degree camera, seems to produce about the similar results at a smaller file size. A couple of the videos that I've done were 1.5 minutes long, and when rendered to YouTube format, they were 13 gigabytes. That's compared to the Insta360 where a 1.5 minute file is about a gigabyte. You know, so that's quite a lot of data difference, and the quality is not that much better. You know, why is there an extra 13 gigabytes of data? I know it's a 5.2K camera, but when rendered to YouTube, it only renders it at 4K anyways. So I still have hopes for the camera. I have toyed with the idea of returning it myself, But I think I'm just going to hold on to it, and we'll see what happens in the future with future updates. Well, I know this video seemed very negative, and for the most part it was. I really feel at this point GoPro wasn't quite ready to release the Fusion. As eager as I was to get my hands on the Fusion, I kind of wish GoPro had waited till everything was polished and ready to go. I still have high hopes for the Fusion, and I'm pretty sure once GoPro gets all the kinks worked out and the software figured out, it will actually be a really good camera. The usability of 360 content is limited at best, and the overcapture and being able to punch out traditional video from the 360 spherical video is very important. Without that feature, a 360 camera for most people is more of a gimmick. After all, there's only so many tiny planet photos you can post on Facebook and Instagram. So I do think GoPro has its work cut out for it if it wants to get a foothold in the 360 market. With new cameras coming out like the Insta360 which is very inexpensive, $299, and even cheaper when they're on sale, and not to mention the new Rylo 360 that was released a couple weeks ago, GoPro really has its work cut out for it. So I think in 6 months I'm going to re-review the Fusion, and we'll see how things have changed, if the firmware has been updated. We'll check out the new software and see if it makes the Fusion more usable, more user-friendly. Until GoPro gets all the software and bugs worked out of the Fusion, I would have to say there are better consumer-level 360-degree cameras on the market. They're less money, and the software powering them is phenomenal. So yeah, folks, that's just my opinion on the Fusion. Take it with a grain of salt. Definitely do your homework before spending the money on the Fusion. I want to thank you for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you found it useful.